the unexpected creatine side effect a doctor noticed after 90 days. Creatine is one of the most studied supplements in the world. It's affordable, widely used, and generally considered safe for healthy adults. From gym beginners to older lifters trying to preserve muscle, it's often one of the first supplements people add to their routine. But recently, a doctor shared something interesting after monitoring patients who had been taking creatine consistently for about 90 days. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't dangerous, and it certainly wasn't headline-level scary. But it was unexpected, and it's something most people completely overlook when they start supplementing. After about 3 months of consistent use, certain subtle changes began to show up. Some were performance-related, others were related to hydration, lab values, recovery patterns, and even mindset shifts around training. None of these effects were harmful for healthy individuals, but they highlighted how creatine interacts with the body in ways people don't always anticipate. The takeaway wasn't that creatine is bad, it was that context, habits, and awareness matter more than most users realize. So, let's break down 8 things that can show up after roughly 90 days on creatine, including the surprising effect that caught this doctor's attention and sparked the conversation in the first place. But before we begin, drop your name and the city you're watching from in the comments below. Alright, let's get started. Number 1. The blood test surprise. The first clue didn't show up in the gym, it showed up in lab work. After about 3 months of consistent creatine use, some patients had slightly elevated creatinine levels on their routine blood tests. For anyone unfamiliar, creatinine is a waste product that doctors measure to help assess kidney function. When it rises above the typical reference range, it can raise red flags. Now, here's the key. Elevated creatinine doesn't automatically mean kidney damage. When you supplement with creatine, a portion of it naturally converts into creatinine as part of normal metabolism. That means blood creatinine levels can increase slightly, even when kidney function is completely normal. In healthy individuals, this rise reflects supplementation, not harm. The unexpected part wasn't injury or dysfunction, it was confusion. In cases where patients forgot to mention they were taking creatine, the lab numbers looked concerning at first glance. Doctors saw higher creatinine levels and understandably considered possible kidney stress. That led to follow-up questions, repeat testing, and unnecessary anxiety before the supplement use was clarified. Once the full picture was known, everything made sense. This highlights an important lesson. Context matters. Creatine can influence lab values in ways that are harmless but misleading if the full story isn't shared. The takeaway isn't to fear creatine, it's to communicate. If you're supplementing and getting blood work done, always inform your healthcare provider. Sometimes the unexpected effect isn't physical, it's interpretational. Number 2. Subtle water weight stabilization. The scale jumped early, then leveled off. In the first few weeks of taking creatine, most users noticed a small increase in body weight. Sometimes it was 1 pound, sometimes 2 or 3. For people closely watching the scale, that quick change felt dramatic. But the cause wasn't fat gain, it was water stored inside muscle cells. Creatine increases intracellular water content. That's part of how it enhances strength and performance. Muscles become more hydrated, which supports better energy production and recovery. The scale reflects that shift almost immediately, but here's what stood out after about 90 days. The weight gain didn't keep climbing. The doctor observed that patients who stayed consistent with a moderate daily dose didn't continue gaining weight month after month. Instead, their body weight stabilized once muscle creatine stores were saturated. The early jump was temporary. After that, the body adjusted and found a new baseline. This is important because many people panic during the first few weeks. They assume the scale will keep rising indefinitely. Some cut calories aggressively, and others stop supplementing altogether. By the 3-month mark, it became clear the initial increase was simply an adaptation phase. Once saturation occurred, there was no ongoing upward trend unless diet or training changed. The unexpected insight wasn't about excessive weight gain, it was about stability. Creatine doesn't cause endless increases on the scale, it causes an early shift, then equilibrium. Understanding that prevents unnecessary reactions and keeps progress steady. Number 3. Improved training consistency. This one wasn't directly measured in blood work or performance charts, but it showed up clearly in behavior. After about 90 days, many patients reported something subtle but powerful. They were sticking to their workouts more consistently. Not because someone forced them to, and not because they suddenly had more free time, but because training felt better. Recovery seemed smoother, muscles felt less drained between sessions, and small strength improvements, an extra rep here, a slightly heavier lift there, added up. That steady sense of progress created momentum, and momentum builds discipline. When people feel like their effort is paying off, they're more likely to keep showing up. Missed sessions decrease. Motivation becomes more internal, and workouts shift from obligation to routine. The unexpected side effect wasn't purely physical, it was behavioral. Creatine didn't magically create willpower, but by improving performance and recovery just enough, it made consistency easier to maintain. Small wins reinforced the habit loop. Effort led to visible progress, and progress reinforced effort. Over 90 days, that positive feedback cycle became noticeable. Patients who felt stronger and recovered better were less likely to quit. This highlights something important. Supplements don't just influence physiology, they can influence psychology and adherence. The doctor didn't observe a dramatic transformation, just a pattern. When the body feels supported, habits stabilize. And in the long run, consistency matters far more than any single supplement ever could. Number 4. Slight increase in muscle fullness. It wasn't dramatic, but it was visible. After about 3 months of consistent creatine use, some individuals appeared slightly more filled out. Not bigger in a bodybuilder sense, not dramatically bulkier, just less flat. Shirts fit a little tighter around the shoulders. Arms looked subtly fuller. Muscles had a denser appearance, even at rest. This wasn't new muscle magically appearing overnight. What the doctor observed was likely a combination of 2 factors, building gradually over time. First, creatine increases intracellular water storage inside muscle cells. That hydration gives muscles a fuller, rounder look. It's not superficial water under the skin, it's stored inside the muscle tissue itself. Second, improved performance compounds over weeks. If someone is able to push slightly harder, recover slightly better, and train slightly more consistently, that adds up over 90 days. Small performance advantages accumulate into real, measurable progress. The visual change wasn't explosive, it was subtle and steady. Interestingly, many patients didn't notice the shift themselves at first. It was often pointed out by others or seen in comparison photos. Because the change happened gradually, it felt natural rather than dramatic. This highlights an important point. Creatine doesn't create instant transformations. It supports small improvements that compound over time. The unexpected takeaway wasn't rapid muscle gain, it was quiet enhancement. A little more fullness, a little more density, and a little more visible consistency. Sometimes the biggest changes are the ones that don't scream for attention. Number 5. Hydration patterns became obvious. The people who struggled weren't under-supplementing, they were under-hydrating. After about 90 days of monitoring, a clear pattern started to emerge. The patients who reported mild side effects weren't the ones taking too little creatine. In fact, most were using standard daily doses. The common factor wasn't dosage, it was fluid intake. Those who didn't increase their water consumption sometimes experienced mild headaches, low-grade fatigue, or occasional muscle cramps. Nothing severe, nothing dangerous, but noticeable enough to create concern. Meanwhile, patients who intentionally increased their daily hydration reported little to no discomfort at all. The difference was striking. Creatine works by drawing water into muscle cells. That's part of how it enhances performance and recovery. But when intracellular water increases, overall hydration needs rise slightly as well. If fluid intake stays the same while demand increases, subtle imbalances can show up. The doctor's observation was simple but important. Creatine wasn't the problem, hydration habits were. In nearly every case where symptoms appeared, adjusting water intake resolved the issue without changing the supplement dose. Once hydration improved, headaches faded, and energy stabilized. This reinforces a key principle. Supplements don't operate in isolation, they interact with daily habits. When the supporting behaviors are aligned, creatine tends to feel smooth and effective. When they're neglected, minor issues appear. The unexpected lesson wasn't about side effects, it was about responsibility. Sometimes the solution isn't removing the supplement, it's upgrading the habit that supports it. Number 6. Joint stress in overachievers. Feeling stronger can be a double-edged sword. After about 90 days on creatine, some highly motivated individuals began reporting minor joint discomfort. Nothing severe, no major injuries, but small, nagging aches in the elbows, shoulders, or knees started to show up. At first glance, it might seem like the supplement was the culprit, but when training patterns were reviewed, a different story appeared. Creatine enhances short-burst energy production. That means more reps, slightly heavier loads, and better recovery between sets. Over weeks, those small improvements stack up. Strength climbs steadily, and confidence climbs with it. But muscles adapt faster than connective tissues. Tendons, ligaments, and joint structures take longer to strengthen. They require gradual, progressive loading over time. When muscle output increases quickly, it can outpace the readiness of those slower adapting tissues. The unexpected effect wasn't injury, it was overconfidence. Because lifts felt easier, some individuals increased weight too aggressively. Others added extra volume or reduced rest periods. The body felt capable, so training intensity rose faster than structural adaptation could support. The result wasn't catastrophic damage, it was minor irritation, the kind that whispers before it shouts. The doctor's takeaway was clear. Creatine didn't cause the discomfort. Rapid strength gains, combined with ambitious programming, did. This highlights an important lesson. Performance improvements should be matched with intelligent progression. Feeling stronger doesn't mean skipping patience. When strength rises, discipline must rise with it. Number 7. Mental clarity improvements. This surprised even the doctor. Several patients, almost as an afterthought, casually mentioned something unexpected during follow-ups. They felt a bit more mentally sharp, a little less brain fog, slightly better focus during long workdays. It wasn't the main reason they started creatine. Most were taking it for strength and muscle support, but it kept coming up in conversation. What makes this interesting is that creatine isn't just stored in muscle tissue. It also plays a role in brain energy metabolism. Just like muscles, the brain relies on ATP for energy. Creatine helps regenerate ATP, especially during periods of high demand, intense concentration, sleep deprivation, or mental stress. The cognitive boost wasn't dramatic. No one described it as a life-changing transformation. It wasn't like suddenly gaining a photographic memory or superhuman clarity. But the consistency of the comments stood out. Patients described subtle improvements, feeling less mentally drained in the afternoon, recovering faster from poor sleep, or maintaining focus a little longer during demanding tasks. The doctor hadn't specifically asked about cognitive changes, yet the feedback appeared repeatedly. This highlights something important. Creatine's effects aren't limited to the gym. While it's most famous for muscle performance, its role in cellular energy extends beyond physical strength. The unexpected takeaway wasn't explosive brain enhancement, it was subtle support, enough to be noticed, but not exaggerated. Sometimes the most interesting effects are the quiet ones. Number 8. The real unexpected side effect. The biggest change wasn't physical at all. After about 90 days, the doctor began noticing a pattern that had nothing to do with muscle size, lab values, or performance metrics. The real difference showed up in mindset. Patients who understood how creatine worked, how it pulls water into muscle cells, how it can slightly raise creatinine on blood tests, and how early weight gain is usually just fluid, tended to stay consistent. They didn't panic when the scale moved, they didn't overreact to minor lab fluctuations, and they expected the adjustments, so they interpreted them correctly. As a result, they stuck with it long enough to experience the actual benefits. On the other hand, those who didn't understand the mechanisms often reacted emotionally. A 2-pound jump on the scale felt like fat gain, a slightly elevated creatinine level felt like kidney trouble, and mild bloating felt like something was wrong. Without context, normal adaptations looked alarming. Many of those individuals stopped supplementing prematurely, not because of harm, but because of fear. The real unexpected side effect wasn't damage, it wasn't danger, and it wasn't some hidden long-term risk, it was misinterpretation. Creatine itself remained consistent. The outcomes varied based on understanding. Knowledge created confidence, and lack of knowledge created anxiety. The doctor's takeaway was simple. Education changes outcomes. When people know what to expect, they respond rationally instead of reactively. And sometimes, the most powerful effect of a supplement isn't what it does to your body. It's how well you understand what it's doing. So what was the unexpected creatine side effect noticed after 90 days? Not kidney failure, not hormonal disruption, and not anything dramatic. It was how small, normal, physiological changes, like creatinine levels or water retention, created confusion when people didn't understand what was happening. Creatine remains one of the most researched supplements available. But like anything, it works best when used with awareness, proper hydration, and realistic expectations. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had lab work done while taking creatine? Did anything surprise you? If you'd like a follow-up video on how to read blood tests while supplementing, how long to take creatine safely, or who should avoid it, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Because understanding your body beats guessing every time.